purpose of meditation is to familiarize the mind with wholesome states. It's not simply to relax the body, although that's an advantage. Not just to calm the mind from the daily events so that you can make more money, although that is a benefit. So sit comfortably with your spine erect, so sit up straight. Eyes partially open if you can. Sometimes you can focus down the edge of your nose. And just focus your attention on the breathing without controlling it. As though if I were to ask you to listen to something, you wouldn't have to make a sound to listen to. Watch the rhythm of the breathing as it goes in, pauses, and goes out. In so doing, relax your body, your chin, your cheeks, your face, your neck, your shoulders, torso, your hips, your legs, your arms, your hands. Relax your mind, which means don't chase after the various thoughts that are sort of bubbling up. Put all of your attention on watching the breathing. If you get distracted to a place in your body, just relax that and go back to watching the breathing. If you get distracted by a thought, turn your attention away from the objective thought to the mind that's perceiving it, which has no form or shape or color. And so relax it, let that thought disappear. Just watch the breathing. As you're breathing, you may still notice part of your attention is perhaps on the sense of a person, yourself, who is experiencing this breathing, or being distracted to thoughts that keep on arising. At the end of one of the inhalations, starting about now, let go of your attention to the breathing and just place a corner of your mind, attention, on the consciousness itself, not the thoughts, but the consciousness that's perceiving them, its nature. Because it can arise instantaneously in various perceptions, aspects of various things, colors, shapes, thoughts, emotions. It's like an empty space that can be filled and emptied. Doesn't have any obstruction, not like molasses or a brick wall or a piece of rock. Thoughts can come and go. The mind also has the quality of knowing what is arising in it. In fact, basic definition, very simple definition of mind is that which is clear and knowing. So turning your attention inward to that resource that we always have, this nature of the mind. Whatever thoughts are arising, immediately turn your attention away from the objective thought to that clear nature of the mind that's perceiving it, and the thought will begin to sort of fade away, dissipate, disappear. Even the more enduring sense of your body. Right now you might actually feel the shape of your body, your torso, your legs, your arms, your head. That too is appearing to mind as a thought. Try this. Ask yourself, what is the mind, the nature of the mind that's perceiving this body? It's clear, knowing, like vast space. Place your attention on that and let go of your attention to the body. Now, even the sense of even after the body is a little bit disappeared, maybe not as, it's not posing itself so brightly as before, there's still a sense of the observer other than the mind. You, yourself. See if you can sense that. Not you as a student or a FEMA worker or physician or whatever, musician, but just the sense of you. That too is appearing to your mind like an objective thought. Ask yourself to focus instead on the consciousness that's perceiving that thought, and in so doing, let that thought fade away. In doing this, you may have developed sort of like some image in the mind of the consciousness. Might be out in front of you, or whitish, or whatever. Recognize that too is not the actual mind, but just your imagination of it. Let go of that. Try to just experience the actual vast space-like consciousness within which that is appearing. I think within this clear mind that I have, I can develop all of the sublime qualities that I might have aspired to at some point in my life, or still aspire to. Courage, intelligence, compassion, forgiveness, love, but strength. And I can eliminate all the faulty states of mind that I have. Short-tempered, irritation, resentment, holding a grudge, being vengeful, ill will, so forth. All of them can be eliminated from this clear mind. I have the recognition of this right now due to being born as a human at a time when the teachings of the spiritual path still exist and are still being practiced. A very rare situation that I may not encounter again. From a Buddhist perspective, if taking rebirth again in the future, very rare to have such a situation. So think, I'm going to take advantage of this tonight and for the rest of my life to try to develop my spiritual qualities, to generate the causes of future happiness and understanding, to eliminate the negative instincts I've left in my mind from the past. For the welfare, not just for myself alone, but so that I can be a better brother and sister to all living beings. And to do so tonight, tonight my main focus of attention in doing so will be to listen to the talk on the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, the Heart Sutra. I'm going to listen to this tonight with the intention of healing myself, taking what I can, integrating it into my mind, leaving that which I can't understand or that seems discordant, not worrying. I'm going to listen to the teachings in order to heal myself, to become my ultimate ability of perfection this lifetime. For the sake of others, so that I can, in relating with them, I can give love and compassion and strength and knowledge, courage, rather than always being confrontational and problematic. And then relaxing from that, bring your attention back to the present. One of the advantages of coming a couple minutes late is that usually people don't sit in the front, so you can always find a seat nice to see. So, for auspiciousness, we're going to begin after that by reading the Heart Sutra, which you may have a copy of, I think. There you go. Is that it? Yeah. Starts on one side, finishes on the other. Yeah. So the reason for this is that it became tradition in various Buddhist countries, especially Tibet and in Mongolia. There's my Mongolian. To read the Heart Sutra at the beginning of teachings, because one of the greatest powers to eliminate obstacles is the wisdom that realizes the ultimate nature of phenomena, the perfection of wisdom, which is going to be the topic that we're going to be talking about. And so this sutra is one of the shortest, it's sometimes called the Sutra of 25 stanzas, 25 verses. And very, very short, but encapsulates the deep meaning of emptiness. So just even reciting it, and those who have previously studied and understood the meaning, it can bring back that. Just reading it and chanting it can bring back that understanding to avert obstacles. So we're going to begin, we'll say together if you like, out loud. If you don't like to read, you can just read to yourself, or you can post to your Instagram account while we're doing this. Thus did I hear at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive vultures mountain Rajpuriya, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those five aggregates as empty, also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Sharidvati Putra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates as also empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feelings, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no eye element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell on the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obstruction, without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times also manifestly, completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Tadyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from the concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharidvati Putra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world, gods, humans, asuras, Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised at that spoken by the Bhagavan. So, this is the object of discussion of the seminar, this particular sutra. Do you know that word sutra? Have you heard that before? Siddhe doesn't know what sutra means, right? You're just here. Yeah. So sutra is an Indian word that can refer to a collection of teachings. You might call it discourse that someone gives is called a sutra. Sometimes a collection of many discourses is called the basket of discourses, or the Sutra Pitaka in Sanskrit. This particular sutra is, this discourse that the Buddha gave, is a Mahayana sutra. And that's important to know what that means. You know what Maha means? You must have heard Maha. Like, I bet some words, you know, like Maharaja. Do you know what Maharaja means? Was a great king, or emperor. You could use it as one word, like emperor or monarch. Raja by itself means king. Maharaja means great king. Remember one of the names of Gandhi, the great Indian saint, Mahatma? Mahatma, the great soul, the great being, with two A's coming. Maha is an A, and then Atma, they join together, so Mahatma. There are many other words that find our way in the English language that have the word Maha, so great. Yana, Mahayana, the word yana means a vehicle, an instrument that brings you to a destination. So it can be called the great vehicle. Sometimes is exemplified in certain teachings by the elephant. The elephant in India was a representation of the Mahayana because it was the great vehicle, right? A vehicle can get you to a destination. So the Mahayana is called a great vehicle because it can get you to the greatest destination of enlightenment, the total eradication of all imaginable faults of the mind. Even the most esteemed people in our world today, so-called stable geniuses or whatever. I hope you don't mind. I'll be very subtle in my political comments here. Whether, great intellects or whatever, still have many emotional faults. Enlightenment is a state in which, through enormous effort and meditation and accumulation of good deeds over a long period of time, one has reached a pinnacle of the equality of mind. All faults are eliminated. All good qualities that are capable of being assumed and generated are in the continuum of that enlightened mind. It's like what in the Christian or the Judaic Christian or peoples of the book, what we might call the Godhead. God. Omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. Aren't those usually three qualities that are attributed to the Godhead, to God? The omniscient mind, or the enlightened mind, is not one that has a one particular body. Like there's a show I watch sometimes for comic relief at night called the Colbert Show, or what's it called? Late Night with Colbert. And sometimes on the ceiling of the CBS studio there's a god that sort of talks like, or imagined like in the Sistine Chapel, like embodied. Someone like, kind of like someone in this room with a big white beard. That could be. Not the omniscient mind can appear in many places, numberless places at the same time, in many different forms, from a scorpion to a dog to a human to a spirit to someone, a sage or whatever. But it's not limited to that. It doesn't have any gender. So the Mahayana is the vehicle that brings you to that. So what does that mean by vehicle? Does that mean that we can buy a ticket on that vehicle? Sign up, don't end up selling tickets in the end. That'll go sending to the Mahayana, the bus to enlightenment, the elephant. Well, this vehicle is a method that brings you to that state. So it comprises various practices and teachings and states of mind that one develops in succession in order to reach that state. That's called the Mahayana. Generally, the teachings of the Buddha that were most prominent, even today in the world, through Southeast Asia, let's say, starting from Sri Lanka to Burma, to Thailand, even Cambodia, were the teachings, the original teachings of the Buddha, that the Buddha gave not to achieve the state of enlightenment. You want to come sit in front? And you don't have to. He's so big, you can't see around him. No, you, yeah, Kim.
Not sure.
Yeah. Oh, you don't, I'm sorry, I'm giving up your seat.
It's okay.
Because he, what's your name?
Roger.
Roger's so big, he can't, he's just a little guy.
Not that little, but.
Oh, yeah, you're bigger than I am, yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
Pass it up.
You can see better there. So the original teachings of the Buddha that we are most aware of, that were, and still are practiced in those countries, are what are nowadays called the Theravada. Have you heard that term, Theravada? Do you know what that means? Do you know what Theravada means?
Lower, or old, or original?
Close, yeah, this is getting good,
It's
yeah.
on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, yeah, no, this,
Teaching of the elders.
Elders,
yeah.
yes.
So, Vada kind of means, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, kind of teaching or proclamation or whatever. And Tara means elder.
Elder,
Yeah.
yes.
In Sanskrit, that's its Pali version. In Sanskrit, it's Staivira. You know the Indian language that existed during the time of the Buddha? There are many dialects, like in ancient Italy. There were many different dialects that people could kind of understand a little bit different. There was the street Romano, then there was Latin that the royalty or the parliament spoke and so forth. Like that in India, there was a more refined language called Sanskrit, and then there were many different dialects of that. The technical term for that is Prakrits. So different dialects, and one of them, the main one that was enshrined by a king, is the one that you had to use to refer to the Buddhist teachings, was called Pali. The Pali language, the Pali dialect or Pali language. So it's very similar to Sanskrit. Instead of saying Staivira, they say Tara, like Theravada. Instead of saying karma, you've heard the word karma? Karma? Today, have you heard of karma? What's karma?
Karma means the consequences you get for the things you do.
That's one of the best answers I've heard. Sometimes when I talk to people in Wisconsin, there would be high school students or college students, and they usually say, oh, it means what goes around comes around. I don't know where they get that. That particular phrase, have you heard that phrase?
Mm.
Sometimes people that think that has something to do with karma. That actually, I think a lot of scholars have come to the conclusion that has come about from the Dark Ages, when the plague, the Black Death, was going around, and if you asked in your village, will the Black Death come here, then what goes around comes around. It doesn't really talk about karma. So the best thing is, just as Sadeh had said, kind of the consequences of what you do, or as Jesus was purported to say in his teachings, ye reap what ye sow. It's maybe modern language, if there's modern, you get what you deserve, or something like that. I'm sure there's going to be a rap version of the New Testament and Old Testament sooner or later. So, the Theravada teachings, the tradition of the elders, mainly was aiming not for enlightenment, full enlightenment of a Buddha, but a lesser enlightenment, still not enmeshed in our worldly existence any longer, completely free of that, a state that the Buddha called nirvana. In fact, there's an Indian word that existed before the Buddha, or moksha. Have you heard that word? Not mocha. That's one of those drinks I like. Moksha. Moksha means liberation. So what they're referring to is being liberated from this constant angst of the mind being uncontrolled. Even though you get everything arranged to, what you think is perfection, something's going to come up and, your mind is going to be unhappy the next day. Or you're going to experience incredible pain for long, long periods of time within what the Buddha calls cyclic existence. So the liberation from that is what was the aim of the Theravada. When the Buddha taught his Mahayana, his great vehicle, in some of the Mahayana sutras, he admonished his disciples. He said, don't be satisfied with my lesser teachings, the lesser vehicle that I taught, which is now called the Theravada. He himself said, don't be satisfied with my Hinayana. Hina means lesser. It's kind of the opposite of Maha. I'm not sure if there's some word Hina Raja, lesser Raja, or something like that. It's like your local, the block boss or something like that in your neighborhood, something like, rather than the Maharaja. So don't be satisfied with my Hinayana. Nowadays, in the world, when teachings are given in Asia, the practitioners of the Theravada, great beings, authentic, aiming for this goal of nirvana, they take umbrage with this name, Hinayana. It's almost like it's some pejorative or dirty word. Right? So, but to keep in mind that the Buddha didn't mean it and Mahayanists don't mean it as a pejorative. The Buddha was just saying, given the choice of following my vehicle that leads to your personal liberation, your personal nirvana, or a vehicle that leads to enlightenment in which the result of which is the ability to help all living beings continually, spontaneously, effortlessly for all time, you should choose to follow the Mahayana. Some people, it's not going to be the vehicle that they're capable or interested in following. They'd like to just get out of samsara, solve their problem. So for them, the Theravada may be the right path. Nothing wrong with that. I always mistake this song, one of my all-time favorites from college. Sometimes I think it's the Rolling Stones, but someone else like the Animals or someone, we gotta get out of this place. Who was that, Jeff?
Animals?
The Animals?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know that song?
No, I don't.
No. You don't know.
Yes.
He knows it.
Yeah, maybe if I hear it.
Yeah. Hum a few bars and I'll fake it. We gotta get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, we gotta get out of this place. Something like you, something like that. So, if there's a burning fire in the theater, different people react in different ways. Panic can arise and everyone's running for their self to get out of this place, right? Once you recognize cyclic existence through a lot of study and experience is an endless, limitless torture. It's like being in a prison camp, unbearable prison camp, wanting to get out. Wanting to get out for oneself alone is this Hinayana motivation, Theravada motivation, the desire to achieve freedom from this constant suffering. There's some individuals in the fire, though, who look around and see, oh, can I help you? You know, "Oh, come this way. Oh, there's a person on the floor helping them. Even in, you know, prolonging their time in the fire, possibly even, you know, having some problems because of that. But that altruistic state of mind is a hallmark of the Mahayana. So this is a Mahayana Sutra. It was, so not, although when the Dalai Lama gives teachings, sometimes Theravada Sangha, the monks and nuns, will come and chant in Pali. It's a Pali version, but it's not something it's part of their usual scriptures, the Heart Sutra. It's mainly in the Mahayana, so you'll find it chanted in Tibet, in Nepal, in monasteries in China even, that are Mahayana monasteries. And when China was more free, Korea, Japan. In Japan, the Heart Sutra is even sometimes embellished on neckties and written on very small things and amulets that people wear in many different countries. It's recited. So when the Dalai Lama gives teachings at the beginning, as we did, we recited this in English. His Holiness and the Tibetan monks will chant it in Tibetan. Then it will be chanted in Pali and in Korean and Vietnamese and Cambodian and whatever happens to be there. So it's very, very renowned. It's within a group of scriptures that are called the scriptures on the sutras, the discourses on the perfection of wisdom. The Prajna Paramita Sutras. Have you heard that term before, Prajna Paramita? Some of you have, maybe. Have you heard, Mike? Prajna Paramita? Do you know what prajna means? Prajna is wisdom. So here it's not just an ordinary worldly wisdom, but a very refined wisdom that understands the ultimate nature of phenomena. And we'll be talking about that during the course. Maybe you've heard sometime in the past, all of what, from a enlightened being's perspective, all that we perceive, let's say in this room, of the variety of colors and things, and people that we meet, our daily lives, our traumas, our loves, our hates, our friendships, our relationships, our jobs, our triumphs, our disasters, our addictions, our compulsions, all of these things that seem so real and animating toward our lives, that this is what life is all about. All of these are appearances, like, in a sense, like dreams. Have you ever had a dream that seemed very, very real, so that you woke up with either a fear, if it was a frightening dream, or sort of like an incredible pleasurable pleasure if it was some kind of a very pleasurable dream, even erotic dream, let's say. You wake up and you say, oh, it was just a dream. Nightmare. This is one I think I had. You go to the final of your college exam and you realize you didn't study all year, you don't know anything. Did you ever have that one? some variation of that, So, and then you realize it was only a dream. So something that appeared so real to you at that time, during the dream state, right, seems so vivid and clear and real, palpably real, to cause either fear or elation or whatever. You realize later it did appear, because you have a memory of it for a short time. If you're not trained in dreams, it may not just be a lingering memory. But when we say it was just a dream, we use that, we know what that means to us, that it's not, it didn't really happen. It didn't exist the way that it appeared. From the viewpoint of the perfection of wisdom, all that we see, all of our tragedies, our low self-estimation of ourselves, our guilts, our pride, our jealousies, all of these things don't exist in the way that they appear. They're all like dreams. That wisdom is incredibly liberating. Even the delusion, say if you have trouble with anger or great desire, lust or addiction to substances, alcohol, drugs, all sorts of different addictions. All of these things seem so real and like very difficult to get rid of. If you have an understanding of the perfection of wisdom, some experience in it, you can see them as illusory, like dreams. Letting go, meditating on the perfection of wisdom, their power over you can diminish. If you really have an understanding of the perfection of wisdom, if you cultivate that through analysis and experience and meditation, you can actually eradicate from your mind, like the final enlightened mind, you can eradicate completely these various faults. Our anger, our laziness, our regret about things we've done in the past. Maybe we have memories, we hurt people, or we did things, or we have resentment, people left us. That's one of the constant themes of, I'm living recently in North Carolina, not quite, kind of south, not the deepest south, you get to South Carolina and you get to Alabama, but but the blue, I think the blues and country, well maybe more blues or country western, one of the themes is, my baby done left me. Do you know what that means? I forgot my friend from Mongolia. What's your name again? Hussein. That didn't, so there's, I think, maybe it was Elvis Presley that had one good rendition of that. My baby done left me, bam. So what it means is, one is depressed, unhappy, because someone that you were very fond of, your baby, doesn't mean you're this baby. It means like, like your arm around her, my baby, my baby done left me. Has that ever happened? If not to you, as you've known people, completely depressed people sometimes commit suicide, go, moan for years and years. That kind of state of mind can be eliminated by understanding the nature of phenomena, that all of these things are like dreams. How does one understand they're like dreams? By understanding their ultimate nature, through the wisdom that understands the ultimate nature of phenomena, the perfection of wisdom, the prajna paramita. So sometimes paramita is translated as perfection. So prajna means wisdom. Prajna paramita, wisdom, perfection of wisdom. But literally, paramita, anyone who's a linguist here, anyone know what that literally means? Do you know what that means? Dendrupla, Venerable? Para means other side, like over there, as opposed to here. Paramita. Mita means gone to, so gone to the other side, or gone beyond here, gone beyond the ordinary. So gone beyond the world, the wisdom that has gone beyond all worldly constraints. The perfection, so can be parsed as perfection of wisdom. That's how it, for many decades, it's been translated. But literally, you could call it the wisdom gone beyond. It means gone beyond conventional worldly considerations. So that's what this discourse that the Buddha gave is about. So it begins with a little prelude, which is similar, the very first words are similar to almost every sutra, because after the Buddha passed away, there was a great worry that all of his teachings would be forgotten. They weren't written down, they weren't recorded at the time. They didn't have iPhones or digital recorders or video recorders, obviously. It was not common practice for people to write things down, although written language did exist. And the teachings were generally, for several reasons, the teachings were perpetuated, were preserved through memory and oral tradition. So if one missed the teaching, the Buddha just gave a teaching in Varanasi, oh my, what did he say? And there would be a ritual, they would say the Bhagawan, they would say, much like the beginning here, maybe not exactly those words, but this has a particular history, these preserves, thus I heard at one time. They would say something like that. I heard the Buddha said at Varanasi, and they would try to remember word by word what the Buddha said. When you get home tonight, if I call you up, do you think you could recite back to me everything that I said tonight? Not that you would. It's not. If the Dalai Lama were here, you might pay more attention. But even then, very difficult. Our memories are not honed to do that. In Asia, many times people first study the scriptures by memorizing them. They develop their memories, and later when they study and meditate and give discourses, they can recite from memory many texts and teachings. So, thus did I hear at one time. This is also in the Pali, all of the Pali Sutras in the Theravada tradition all begin with that, sort of translated into English, that what it refers to is that when the Buddha passed away, in fear of forgetting some of the Buddha's teachings, they had a convocation of all of the great beings, and one person was chosen that had heard all of the Buddha's teachings, or if he had not heard them directly from the Buddha, he'd heard them very freshly from others who heard it from the Buddha. Do you know who that person was that was called on to do that?
Ananda?
Ananda. the blissful one, Ananda. He was the attendant of the Buddha, so he was there all the time, or from the time he became the attendant. So those teachings that he might have missed before he was the attendant, he heard from others. So he could say at the beginning, "Thus did I hear at one time." Do you know who Ananda was? Do you know, Venerable? You have to be more. Don't be so humble. You know these things. Was Ananda related to the Buddha? Yeah, he was a Buddha's cousin, one of the cousins. They were after Siddhartha was one of the names that the Buddha had when he was a child, before he was called Buddha. Gautama, Siddhartha, he was part of the Shakya clan. His family was kind of royalty, whether you call king or something influential in northern India, near Nepal. And some of his relatives he had grown up with, they recognized when he left home as a prince to seek enlightenment, they kind of watched. There was no Twitter at the time. They had to hear things slowly over time from messengers or word of mouth and so forth. And once it became known that he had achieved this incredible state and was revered by kings in various parts of India and a vast number of disciples, many of his relatives, with a little bit of pride also, they wanted to become his disciples, you know. So they came, Ananda along with a group of other people. And Ananda, once he was a disciple, he became asked to become, or was asked to become the attendant of the Buddha. He made a couple of requests. He said, if I become the attendant, any teaching you give, I have to be there. Don't give any teachings without me, something like this. And there were some other small minor things that he said. So Ananda was the one who sort of rehearsed, remembered all of these teachings verbally, and he began each one with this, thus did I hear at one time. Now, Ananda may not have been at this particular discourse, though, because this was a discourse to higher beings, Mahayana practitioners. But still, when the Mahayana sutras were rehearsed after the Buddha passed away, supposedly the main person who said those, you know, Kim, you seem to be, you know, some of these, you know, who rehearsed, who remembered all the Mahayana sutras or recited them? They say the Bodhisattva Manjushri, at least there's some tradition like that. So in that same tradition, so whoever has recited this is supposedly from having heard it from the Buddha. Thus did I hear at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vulture's Mountain in Rajagriha. Sometimes sometimes popularly called Vulture's Peak. Have you ever heard of that? Have you heard of Vulture's Peak? Anyone been to Vulture's Peak? Danjuk, have you been? It's probably difficult, but it might be worth some time getting to some of these places. Vulture's Peak is in India, so if you know anything about India, there's Bodh Gaya in the eastern part of India, where the Buddha achieved enlightenment. North of there, there is a mountainous range near a town called Rajagriha. Raja again means king. I can't remember Griha. What does Griha mean? Rajagriha. Town, the king's town, something like that. Near there, there is a mountainous region. One of the very tall peaks is called Vulture's Peak for various reasons. One of the reasons is that the vultures would circle around there, the high point. So the Buddha was teaching there. He was actually on a throne giving this, well, you'll see. The Bhagavan, which is another title for the Buddha, someone who you could call it the person who's overcome all the maras, all the problematic forces of the world. The Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vulture's Mountain in Rajagriha, Vulture's Peak in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. Generally in the Pali tradition, in the Theravada scriptures, it generally just doesn't mention bodhisattvas. It just says, together with the great assembly of monks, numbering so many. There were a certain number of monks at various times. When the Buddha first began, you know how many of these disciples he had at first, when he first taught the Four Noble Truths? It was 5. They were the same beings with whom he had done 4 years of meditation, oh, well, 12 years of meditation, ascetic meditation, trying to achieve higher states, but they didn't have the right approach. Finally, he left them and achieved enlightenment. He sought them out and taught them. So at first there were 5 disciples, and then some more gained. Generally, in the scriptures, it depends at what point the scripture is referring, but one of the common numbers is 72,000 monks or something like that. So sometimes there are great number of monks and lay people. Those that were ordained monks and nuns, you refer to people that took certain commitment in the time of the Buddha. At first, the commitment didn't involve any vows. It was just like making a commitment to follow the Buddha, almost like Jesus said, "Follow me." And when they made this commitment, they would give up wearing ordinary clothes and wear sort of saffron-colored cloth, sometimes just rags and so forth that were colored that way. So here there's a great community of monks, like in the Pali tradition, but also a great community of bodhisattvas. So bodhisattvas are individuals in the Mahayana tradition, this great vehicle, working for enlightenment. In fact, the word for enlightenment in Sanskrit is bodhi. We recited that word in this mantra earlier. Tagyata om gate gate para sangati bodhi svaha. Bodhi means enlightenment. So bodhisattva, sattva can mean just any being, but it can also mean a courageous being. So bodhisattva means a courageous being working for enlightenment, working to attain enlightenment. They're not enlightened necessarily, but they're working toward that. So together with this great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas, at that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration. That means a particular kind of meditative state. He sat down, he sat down. Maybe he even watched his breathing at first, as we did. And then he entered into a concentrated state on the categories of phenomena. That means all the different kinds of things that we conventionally see, these dreamlike things. Mountains, valleys, trees, fences, love, hate, jealousy, like we were saying before, all of the various things, whether they be actions in the world, beings, objects, states of mind, all of these things are called phenomena, conventional phenomena that appear to our mind as though really existing. Like being in a dream state, having that feeling that really is happening. So the Buddha has the ability, only an enlightened being has this ability, to see both the conventional phenomena that we see now, these dreamlike phenomena, and to realize simultaneously with the same mind their ultimate nature as being like the vast emptiness, which means that they are actually, which understands that they're actually devoid of existing the way that they appear, in this subtle way, the way that they appear as though they really are there, really findable, really existing from their own side, not just names. I forgot your name with a nice long hair.
Oh, Eric?
Eric. So if I said to Eric, maybe you know this, if I said, Eric, you're just a name. Yeah, right. There's some, what is it? There's a big thing now in pop, culture talking about who am I? Obviously, like, and for these commercials on TV for pharmaceuticals, I have the power. I've discovered I have the power to overcome this or that, by taking this medicine or something. Sometimes people, we really have a very strong feeling of I. I, Eric, I, George, I, Gabe. You know. Sometimes we identify with the body, sometimes we identify with the mind. Sometimes in a very gross sense we think, oh, I am an architect, I'm a teacher, I'm a good person. I'm guilty, I'm not so good, I'm very low, I'm a bum, I'm an alcoholic. Sometimes people identify with some trait that they have. Isn't that what, in Alcoholics Anonymous, isn't that something they say? Does anyone know? I am an alcoholic. When they introduce themselves, hi, I'm George, I'm an alcoholic, and they say, hi, George. That's what, at least I've seen on TV. I don't know if that actually happens. We have a sense of I that seems to be real, palpable, devoid of our profession or what we think of ourselves, being this or that, good, bad, alcoholic, whatever, or Buddhist or whatever, I. Taking away all those layers, and then we get down to something further, maybe we identify with the body. I am this body, I am this mind. Neither of those can really function, as we'll see, as we're talking about the commentary further along, as really I. There is a sense of I, of ego identity, or self, that seems to be existing independent of the body and mind, although not completely unrelated with them. Somehow related with the body, because we know if you stick a needle in your hand, you say, I got stuck, even though it's just your finger. It's I, still I, still I. You stick the book, you don't say, I was stuck. There's something connecting the body. Also somehow connected with the mind, but not the mind itself. There's some sense of I. The Buddha's deep understanding, his revelation, his understanding of enlightenment, was that I that we perceive as so real, palpably real. You know what I mean by palpable? Like you can feel it, that does not exist at all. Like the boogeyman. Do you know the boogeyman? Some of us are older, we heard about the boogeyman when we were younger. In England it's called you know what it's called in England? The bogeyman. So there was a comic book when we had a monastery in England. There was sometime a Buddhist center, and there was a great comic book called The Bogeyman, and it showed this sort of sooty-looking guy, lived in the dust. He went at home at night to his bogey wife and bogey children, and his job was to go out at night and he was a very kind guy. His wife packed him a little bogey lunch or snack. He would go out and during thunderstorms he would shake the shutters, cause the electricity to go on and off, creak the doors. And it was a great little comic book. It was a hardbound comic book, because you could read it to your kids, and so if there was a thunderstorm and the kids jump into bed and they're afraid, you say, oh, don't worry, it's just the bogeyman. And then they go, it's just his job, he's a lovable guy. But we do feel there get many kind of bogeymen in our lives. Things that are frightening. Someone who maybe doesn't like us, or threatening us, or doesn't love us, or just different kinds of things that seem so real and frightful. All of these kinds of bogeyman, once you realize that they don't exist the way that they appear, like that magazine, like comic book, if you have the wisdom that realizes emptiness, you can be free of that fear. You can be free of all of the consequences of that. So the Buddha was, generally, when you have a realization of ultimate nature phenomena, the wisdom that realizes emptiness, the prajna paramita, the perfection of wisdom, Generally, when you have that state, all that you perceive is the mere vacuity, emptiness of all of the things that, all of the all of the boogeymen that have generally perplex us. All of the conventional phenomena you realize as not existing in the way that they appear. All that appears is nothing, no trace of those things, only emptiness. When you arise from that meditative state that realizes emptiness, because it's something that's achieved in meditation, not just simply in casual thought, and suddenly that appears to you. When you arise from that, then all of the phenomenal world appears again. The mountains, the fences, the jealousy, the boogeymen, and what you think of as angels and good things, and ice cream and pizza and whatever other kind of things that you think of as favorable. Even the highest level bodhisattvas, before they achieve enlightenment, cannot perceive both phenomenal things and their emptiness simultaneously. They have to alternate. They see, they see the frightening thing, they meditate on emptiness, fear goes away, they arise from that, they see the frightening thing again, but now the fear is gone or lessened because they have memory. This is actually empty, it doesn't exist this way. Like Santa Claus coming down the steps to a young child seems so real. But others, maybe the kids who are now 9 and 10 and 11, who have gone through this couple of years and know it's actually Uncle Mike, dressed up, still appears as Santa Claus, exactly the same as it appeared when they were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. But now, having understood it's empty of real Santa Claus, devoid of being real Santa Claus. There's not that same kind of uncontrolled excitement. Okay, so thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on a massive vulture's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception, or profound appearance. So, to his mind, all phenomenal things were appearing, yet also he was simultaneously realizing that they were devoid of the way that they were appearing as findable, as real. Only the Buddha's omniscient mind can do that. How are we doing? What time do we end? 9. Okay, we're almost at 10. So I'll just, as a prelude, I'll read the next 2 lines here. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates as also as empty of inherent nature. Wow! Unpack that one. There's a lot of information here. But I'll just gloss some of the names. Bodhisattva, remember what we said, Bodhisattva was someone who had was in the Mahayana vehicle, was on the Mahayana path. So the Mahayana path is not some, like you can find on Google or something like that. The Mahayana path means a pathway of the mind that is leading to Bodhi. It's on the Bodhisattva path. And there are various stages on that path. They call them the path of accumulating merit, the path of preparing to realize emptiness directly, the path of seeing emptiness directly, and so forth, the path of meditation, the path of graduation. There's no more learning. That means having achieved that goal. So he was called a bodhisattva because he's aiming for Bodhi. He's also called a Mahasattva. Remember Maha? Great. So Mahasattva would mean great being. So in some of the commentaries on the Heart Sutra, it says that these two names are used. They mean the same thing. A Mahasattva is a Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is a Mahasattva, a great being. But slightly different way of looking at them. Like certain synonyms, they mean the same thing, but if you use them in a poem or in some written work, using a slightly different synonym can have different illusions because it's connected with other things. Do you know what I mean? So Bodhisattva is, so the two characteristics of a Bodhisattva is two things. They have two prominent characteristics. One, they're working assiduously, single-pointedly to achieve enlightenment, Bodhi. But their motivation for that is out of compassion for all sentient beings, like to do the best job. If you want to, like some of these commercials for on TV now, I've seen for Phoenix or some university or something online, shows some sort of drawn cartoonish, but it's a very realistic looking ladies working in a machinery lab, and then replaced by machines, by robots. Then she sees she can study information technology, IT. And she goes to college and she does that, and I'm trying to think kind of why I'm telling you that story.
Synonyms.
Pardon?
Synonyms.
Yeah, well, yeah, but see, and her aim, why is she studying at IT? Because you've seen all along, her kids, she's a single mom. She's not doing this just so she could be, ego gratification, but so she can provide for her loved ones. Right? So like that, the Bodhisattva has two aims. One, to achieve enlightenment, but it's motivated out of compassion for all sentient beings, the great mass of all living beings. So the name Bodhisattva mainly emphasizes the goal, Bodhi, of being a hero aiming for Bodhi. Mahasattva, meaning the great hero for the Maha, the great mass of living beings out of compassion. So it has a very nice, complementary, and very comprehensive meaning of the Bodhisattva. At that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara. Arya, do you know what Arya means? Maybe you have a friend named Arya, a very common, popular girl's name nowadays.
Holy.
Huh?
Holy. Noble.
Noble, yes, exactly. It does mean noble. Like we talked, the noble truths, the four noble truths, they're called the Arya truths. The people who invaded India in the early days, maybe 2000 BC, from the Caucasus plains, that rode on horses and so forth, their language also had that word Arya. They considered themselves to be superior, not just noble, but superior to the Indians that they encountered. So that word is enshrined in the Indian language as the Sanskrit evolved, meaning noble or superior. So what it means in Buddhism, if someone is an Arya being, it means that they're superior to our ordinary state of mind. They have realized emptiness with unmediated, that's a nice word, I like that, I've read that today in the Dalai Lama's commentary. Direct realization of emptiness, not just thinking about it, thinking it's like this, but having direct realization of emptiness. That sets them apart, that makes them a superior or noble being, an Arya being. So this, as it tells us, he's a Bodhisattva, who has realized emptiness directly. This particular bodhisattva is named Avalokiteshvara, which literally kind of means one who looks down upon the world with great sorrow, out of compassion for the world. The Dalai Lamas are considered to be emanations of that aspect of the omniscient mind, Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is also the name of a Buddha. Chenrezig in Tibetan, yeah. Chenrezig. Chen means honorific for eye, looking down, Chenrezig. Avalokiteshvara. So the Dalai Lamas and the Karmapas are also considered to be emanations of that state of mind. So I'm going to stop there, and I'll go over that first part of those two lines again tomorrow, but we'll give it a little bit of introduction today. I'd like us just to, before we immediately run out, because we started a couple minutes late, just to take a couple of minutes to sit quietly, relax your body, relax your mind, sort of to, like in doing an experiment in the laboratory, first you, in order to have everything work well, you clean off the tabletop where you're going to do the experiment. So clean your mind of all the other thoughts, as we did at the beginning. And recall that we had motivated, at least some of us had motivated at the beginning, to listen to this discourse tonight, this talk, to take advantage of this perfect situation that we have right now, where we have a human body, we have intelligence, we have the teachings existing. This will only exist, it's like a snap of a finger, and no time at all will be gone. Maybe we'll be born in the hell realms, or as an animal, or a spirit, or whatever, a long time before we find a situation when we can experience the teachings and work toward enlightenment. So we thought at the beginning, I'm going to listen to the teachings tonight with the aim of achieving Bodhi, like the Bodhisattva, but with the intention of doing so for the benefit of all living beings, like the essence of the meaning Mahasattva, of the word Mahasattva. So, although the talker, myself in this case, very fragile, ordinary being, still relating the teachings of Buddha, having myself heard them from the Dalai Lama and other lamas, exposition of the Heart Sutra in the past. So there's some benefit in even hearing the words, certainly in contemplating, thinking about them, leaving an imprint in our mind to ourself, aspire to those goals of Bodhisattva, Mahasattva. So think we've created this evening some virtuous karma, actions in the act of listening. Maybe there were moments when your mind might have had some small little insight or warm feeling. Think, I'm going to, recognizing that these actions will have results. This karma will have its own fruit or fruition in the future, its own results. We will reap what we sow. Think to dedicate that merit, like when you save money and you dedicate it for your college education or your kids' college, or for a house for your family or whatever. Think, due to these merits that I've created this evening and in the past, all the virtuous karma, may they become the causes of my continual spiritual progression, my evolution hour by hour, day by day, week by week, year by year, even life by life, may these karmic seeds that we've planted never dissipate in simply worldly pleasures that are experienced once and gone, meaningless events like that. But may they ripen, may they be preserved to act as the fertilizer, so to speak, the nutrient of my spiritual growth, all the way to enlightenment, when I can spontaneously and effortlessly benefit all sentient beings. If you can think like that, thinking these seeds that we've created, actions we've created tonight, may they result in my enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, so that I can help them perfectly. That's what's called conventional dedication. And then if you have some little feeling of what emptiness means, to imagine that state, these karmic deeds, that dedication, the state we're dedicating to, these three things, are all like dreams, like illusions, like the reflection of the moon in a pool of water. They appear to be real, but they are empty of that reality, ultimately. So dedicating in this way, recognizing the emptiness of these, the actions we've created, the goal we're dedicating to, and the action of dedication, all like illusions, like dreams. This is called the ultimate dedication. Thank you very much. So not too bad, just a couple minutes after 9. So thanks for your attention, and I hope you found something to chew on. One of my great teachers, Geshe Sopa, was passed away some 10 years ago. He used to say, when he gave teachings on wisdom, he used to say, he'd look around, he was even old then, when he was still teaching, he was in his it was late 80s. He had long, bushy eyebrows. And he'd say, now we're going to chew some tough, dry bones. You know, like sort of like difficult things to think about, sometimes logic and, you know, all of these things that are hard to keep in mind, but still so beneficial, leaving some imprint. I had the fortune of teaching 3 months of the Heart Sutra when I was in California 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, just before the Dalai Lama gave the set of lectures that are written about in this book. If you want to, this is a good book if you want to have a good one. Essence of the Heart Sutra. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. If you've got a tablet or something, you can even get the, what's it called, like the Kindle edition or something like that on Amazon. You can have it immediately. Very, very good, covering the same material. This set of lectures that Dalai Lama gave in Mountain View, California, I happen to have been there. They used my translation. I think this is my translation, isn't it?
It's FBNT.
The FBNT one is my translation. So I had taught this course, and we knew that the Dalai Lama was going to give this big discourse in Mountain View in a big stadium. And so they used my translation. And the students that had taken the course, it was just once a week for 3 months. So it's not like 3 months every day or something, but 2-hour class every week. And they came afterwards, after the Dalai Lama was talking, they said, thank you, Venerable. It's incredible because, I said, why are you thanking me? The Dalai Lama just gave this discourse. And he said, without this understanding, you know, that we got through studying it, hearing it, going over all of this. I'm gonna take your picture while someone just wanted to say, we would have been lost. You know, so maybe my hope is that if you persevere, if you have time to come during the weekend, having a little understanding of this later when other lamas, real realized beings, Lama Zopa Rinpoche or Khenser Rinpoche, who teaches here often, or even the Dalai Lama, if you hear a discourse on the Heart Sutra, you'll be able to follow, you'll know some of these subtleties already, and then some of the greater subtleties will be able to distill into your mind on the basis of that foundation. Yeah, I'm going to take a picture here. So you don't have to smile. Let me see if I can.
But it's allowed?
Yeah, it could be loud, yeah. There you go, thank you. There was a, yeah, they said, you know, without this, we would have been lost. It reminded me of when I was in Italy. There was Italian Telecom had a set of commercials on TV for their service. You know, there was one, this guy, a sequence of ones. He was about to be shot by the French Foreign Legion. You know, the typical kind of thing, right? And you know what it is? There's a guy with the colonel or something with this whip, and these guys with their guns are ready to shoot him, and he said, wait. You know in the movies, it's always like you get one last wish, right? So he said, what do you want? He said, I want to call Mama. So he hands him the cell phone, and he's talking to his mom. You know, in Italy, Mama is very important, right? He's talking in Italian. He said, Mama, you know, without this phone, I'd be dead. Quite literally, I always remember. So without this introduction, they felt they would have been lost. So I'm hoping that you can have a French Foreign Legion experience sometime in the future. Thank you very much. I hope to see some of you tomorrow and Sunday, and if not, hope we meet again sometime soon. Thank you very much.